Hello everybody and welcome to another edition of the Good Bit Podcast. Thank you very much for joining us this week, and what an episode you have chosen to join us for this week. For the first time, unbelievably for the first time on the Good Bit Podcast, we are talking about what is widely regarded as one of the greatest films of all time, 1972's The Godfather by Francis Ford Coppola. And my goodness, what a guest we have joining us this week on the podcast, star of Two Doors Down, City Lights, and of course Only an Excuse, Jonathan Watson. It's a big deal that you're here. Thank you very much for your time today. How you doing?
I'm doing good, thanks. I'm good. Thanks for asking me to do it.
No, don't be daft. No, you're always welcome. I don't know, are you a podcast guy? Have you ever done podcasts before, or do you listen to any podcasts?
I've never listened to a podcast in my life.
Really?
I'm sure this is something I should put right, because I've heard that there's some great ones kicking about, but no, I haven't listened to any podcasts.
I think you were going to say I've never listened to your podcast, and I was like, well, I'm no surprised.
No. You're in good company. Haven't listened to any.
Well, I got in touch with you because I saw your Play Pie and a Pint show at the Oran Moor a few weeks ago, and it's been lovely for me getting back to going to the theatre more often and things like that. It was something I was trying to do a lot before the pandemic, and then during the whole COVID thing, I was like, I really miss going to things like that. Do you know what I mean? So it was really nice to go to see your show, and also seeing it really busy, which was really nice as well. How was that whole experience for you, doing the run of shows at the Oran Moor? Then I believe you took it on a few different theatres, right?
No, we only took it to the Traverse.
All right, from Edinburgh.
In Edinburgh. But the following week, it transferred from Oran Moor to the Traverse, as a number of the plays do. So it was great. It was we were sold out both the venues, which was great, and the audiences were fantastic. But I loved the experience of doing it. I try and do a play each year roughly.
Right.
It's not been easy last couple of years, obviously, but I try and do something every year, and I was very fortunate that I was given the opportunity to do Douglas's play, because it was a beautifully written monologue, and it was written for me,
right?
So, which was very humbling. But it was, I loved doing it, and I very much hope to do it again. I don't want this to be the end of it.
Of course,
I think it should be seen by a wider audience.
Yeah, I thought it was brilliant that the fact it was so long and it was such a long monologue, and the fact that you're able to keep people interested and stuff. That's a really difficult thing, obviously. Do you know what I mean? So I don't want to make you feel old here or anything, but I have been watching you for a long time.
Don't worry about that. Don't worry about that.
Good. I've been a fan for a while. So much so that I used to have an Only an Excuse DVD. I don't know if you remember this DVD that came out. It was called The Ultimate Only an Excuse.
Oh, the listeners have been so many. I thought you were going to actually make me feel old and say, no, but it would be your dad that would have the cassette, no doubt. But,
probably did.
Yeah, we go back to cassette days as well. So there's been a number of DVDs out, so I can't keep tracking.
No.
So.
This was probably around 2007, 2008, so it wasn't too long ago. But I had that DVD, and I remember it being a big thing. Me and my mates would always talk about it and stuff. I remember really vividly my mate Mark, who just lives around the corner, I remember him telling his pals and stuff oh, Chris has got the Ultimate DVD, and I don't know how that was a big deal. So we ended up watching that a bunch of times. But the whole Only an Excuse thing was just it became that tradition where every New Year's Eve, it became as traditional as any other thing you would do at New Year's Eve. You'd watch Only an Excuse and you'd watch Still Game. And the Still Game episode that came on was always a rerun of the same episode. It was the one of them stuck in the lift, which is a brilliant episode. Do you know what I mean? And it's one you can watch over and over again. But the Only an Excuse episode was always brand new, obviously, just with the whole year of sports, football, any other pop culture things that was going on. When did you did the BBC approach you and say, right, okay, I want this to be a yearly thing? There was the early doors where they said to you, I want you to produce a new episode every year.
What happened was this. When would it be? I'm going to see. I think it was about 1986.
Wow.
There was a programme on BBC Scotland called Only a Game. And it was a five-part series about Scottish football. And the first two episodes were particularly good because they focused on sort of 5 top players, and the second was 5 top teams or managers. I can't quite remember, but it was written by William McIlvanney, and it had a very distinctive style in his delivery and his way of describing things, and it was ripe for mimicking.
Mm-hmm.
And me and Philip Differ, whose idea, Only Excuse is Philip's baby. It was his idea. We used to lark about in the Tron bar, because that's where we used to record Naked Radio.
Right.
We used to record at Tron every Friday lunchtime, and I would do McIlvanney narration and stuff like that. But then Philip got the idea of maybe doing a pilot of a sort of spoof of Only a Game,
right,
called Only an Excuse. And he went to Stan Taylor, who was head of Radio Scotland at the time, and said, "Look, Stan, I've got this idea to do a spoof in Only a Game. Johnny'd be in it. I think they're asking Tony, and a few of the boys would write it. Any chance of getting the money to do a pilot?" And Stan said, "This would never happen now." Stan just said, "I tell you what, that sounds like a great idea. Just go and make the programme." And so we didn't even have a pilot. We just made the programme, and it went out about an hour before Scotland played West Germany in the '86 World Cup. And this is, obviously before social media and everything.
Of course.
But it took off like you wouldn't believe. I mean, and the Radio Clyde guys, they were sending bootleg copies down to South America. Well, that's why loads of these things were kicking about. But it had a huge impact, because nothing like it had been done before. This is before Off the Ball and all this kind of stuff. It's the first time MD had linked a coupled comedy with football, our national obsession, and it really caught on. And on the back of that, we did another radio recording prior to the '90 World Cup. There may have been a couple more in between. I'm not exactly sure the timeline, but prior to the World Cup in Italy, we did, now when would it be? It might have even been before that slightly, but we did a stage version of Only an Excuse, which was part of Mayfest, which was a festival that used to happen many years ago, and it did very, very well. And on the back of that, BBC asked for a sort of televised version of it.
Yeah.
And we were able to give them a taster of it, because Philip and I, by this time, were working in a thing that Philip was producing called the Ferguson Theory, which was fronted by Craig Ferguson. And he used to do his stand-up, and I would link it with sketches, link the different speeches with sketches. And in one of the first episodes, Philip very craftily engineered it so that it was a little taster of what Only an Excuse could be like.
Right.
It was 7 minutes long. And again, that took off. Won the Roses in the Sunday Mail, nothing like that. And so they had an idea of what they were dealing with.
Right.
And then Philip was asked to produce a show that was going to go out in Hogmanay. And it went a bomb. It went an absolute bomb. But funnily enough, the head of BBC Scotland at the time didn't commission a second one.
Oh, really?
Initially. No, he didn't. But pressure was putting him to do so. So we cobbled together a second one as well.
Right.
Throughout the following year. And that was just the start of it.
Yeah.
And because it had gone down so well, each year just it fell into place.
They kind of had no choice but to get you to make another one.
Yeah, but despite the popularity of it, we only ever knew round about February, March if we were recommissioned for the following year.
Right. Okay. So you didn't have too long to.
Yeah, it wasn't as if we took it for granted. We didn't know what their plans were, and they only let us know around about springtime. So yeah.
Did you ever receive any major backlash from other teams' fans and stuff? Like if you say you were to make a joke about someone really important and stuff, obviously you're going to get critiques here and there, but
you do. But I mean, you can't you can't bother about that. I mean,
No.
there's the old saying that a good joke will always hurt somebody. So,
right.
You just roll with it. And we were never put off by any kind of reaction from things like that.
Yeah. I bet you probably enjoyed some of the reaction as well if you've seen some of the outrageous on people.
We always used to temper it by saying, if the person we said a joke about was to walk in the room right after we said it, how would we feel? And if we felt, that was our sort of way of judging if we'd gone too far or not.
Aye.
So, but you had to be quite thick-skinned.
Of course, different in the days. I mean, you could probably get away with more as well.
Oh, you would listen. Philip and I were talking about this the other day. I mean, we did a radio show that ran for about 10 years called Watson's Wind-Up, and it was in the naked radio slot. Used to record it at Friday lunchtime. You couldn't do half the stuff now. You just couldn't do it. So there you go.
Well, my favourite impression that you did was Sir Alex Ferguson. So if you want to talk about the Godfather like Sir Alex Ferguson, then I wouldn't have an issue with that whatsoever.
No, I wouldn't do that. Don't worry.
No, I'm joking. When did you start like performing? When did you know you wanted to be an actor, a performer? Has it always been something you've been into since you were wee?
No, it was. I tell you what happened. It started when I was about 10. My dad had come home from work one night. He said, "Look, somebody at work was saying that there's a junior course at the Royal Scottish Academy of Music and Drama. Do you fancy going along to it?" And I was the only child, so I think my dad was quite keen to get me involved in as many things as as possible. And I went along to it with no idea of what to expect or anything like that. And so I'm just searching for a tissue here. No idea of what to expect. And I loved it. Absolutely loved it. And I was there from about the age of 10 to about 17. And in the course of that time, if anybody was casting anything, particularly the BBC, they would come along to the Saturday morning sessions and sort of hang about the back of the class. And as a result of that, I was involved in a number of drama productions when I was a kid, like the original Dr. Finlay's Casebook and Sutherland's Law.
Right.
When the Wednesday play was the first thing I did, which was a sort of forerunner to Play for Today. So I did a lot of stuff when I was a kid. There were a few years ahead of me, but Alex Norton and Brian Pettiford, actors like that, they went along to it as well. It was a great mix. It was a great social mix. You had a lot of rich kids from the South Side coming along, and a lot of kids for the Gorbals. I was brought up in St George's Cross and Mary Hill, so there's a real mix. It was a great. It was a great thing to go along to, and I absolutely loved it. Yeah, so that's how I got started.
Aye.
And then when I had no intention of going into it full time, and when I left it when I was 17, so I'd been 5th or 6th year at school. Finished school, and I had no idea what I was going to do, but I had been offered a job at my dad was in advertising, and he had trained it as a commercial artist and got into advertising. And I'd worked there one summer and been offered a job, but I chose to go back and do a 6th year. But then, so when I left school, I thought, well, maybe I should pick up the chance to get involved in this. And I went to do a course that would focus mainly on copywriting. And halfway through it, I got asked by the BBC to do a play.
Wow.
And it was with a director I'd worked with before. And the college wouldn't give me the time off. And so I asked my dad, I said, look, what should I do here? And bear in mind, my dad actually, he had been involved in the setup of this course. He had advised them and everything like that about certain aspects of things that they should cover. And he said, do you want to do it? And I said, yeah, I do it. He said, well, just do it then. So I dogged it for 2 weeks and did this play. And when I finished it, that was my mind made up. I thought, no, this is what I want to do. And I went into the drama college the next day and got into the final set of auditions for that following year's intake, and I got in, and that was it.
The rest is history. There you go.
Yes, the rest is history.
I always ask my guests when they come on the show about like their earliest memories watching movies or going to the cinema. Again, I don't want to make you feel too old. Do you have any memories of going to the cinema? If you can remember the first time you went to the cinema or the first time you saw movies?
I do. We used to go to the cinema quite a lot. All the cinemas that I went to as a kid, they're all gone now. The first film I saw as a kid was a film starring Yul Brynner and Lawrence Harvey called Taras Bulba, which I saw in the La Scala, which is now Watterson's bookshop.
All right.
Yeah. When I was a kid, though, I grew up in St George's Cross, and our local cinema was the ABC in St George's Road on the way to Charing Cross. Mm-hmm. And I was never out the place. And certainly when I was early teens, I was mad keen going there myself, because it was one of the few places that even if you looked about 12, 13, 14, they'd still let you into an 18, an X certificate, you know. So I saw loads of films in there. But, you know, we used to go to the Odeon. I remember going to the Odeon when it was one big cinema, which is a place where the Beatles played there in the early 60s.
Wow.
They cut that into 3 cinemas. That's in Renfield Street. There was the Regent just up the road from that. The La Scala that I talked about in Sucky Hall Street, across the road from that was the Gaumont. The likes of Sound and Music ran there for about 3 years. There's loads of cinemas. So I've got loads of memories of visiting all these places. Yeah.
Do you have a favourite film that was like your first favourite film that you remember going, you watched over and over again and you maybe had it on video and things like that?
Yeah, well, right. I've got loads of favourite films. I think that the first one that would come in at that category was Where Eagles Dare.
Right.
Which I saw, I think, over on the south side in what was the Coliseum Cinerama. I may have seen this. I may have seen that ABC in Sucky Hall Street. But Where Eagles Dare is like that. So when Eagles Dare comes on the TV, I feel duty bound to watch it, along with Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid as well.
Classic.
I think I'll just watch it up until such and such. You know?
Yeah,
you get hooked.
Aye. Yeah. Those are the best films as well, when it doesn't matter what stage of the film it's at. You know what I mean? If it's just on ITV2 or whatever, you know what I mean? You can just start watching that. That's Jaws for me. I end up watching Jaws all the time.
Yeah, fantastic film. Yeah, that'd be one of my films like that. I'd quite happily watch that. Yeah.
Aye. Do you like the Jaws sequels?
No. I hate them. Along with Roy Scheider. No, I don't like them.
You hate Roy Scheider?
Roy Scheider hated the second one, seemingly.
Oh, I see what you mean. Right, okay.
Contracted. Part of the contract with the original one was that he would have to take part in a sequel.
Right. He didn't want to do it.
But he didn't want to do it. But no, I loved the first one, the original one. I really did. Yeah.
Aye. I saw Jaws in the cinema recently. Actually, last year, I think it was, or maybe the year before. It was the hottest day in Glasgow. It was like, I don't know, up to 29 degrees or something, right? I've not had a day like this in years. And they were showing Jaws in Cineworld on Renfrew Street. And me and my dad always watched Jaws together and stuff when I was like growing up and stuff, and it became one of my favourite films. So we said, we're going to go and see it. So again, it was the warmest day of the year. And instead of sitting out and relaxing, we went and saw Jaws. But then last year, they also showed it at the View Cinema. I don't know if it's just because like cinemas were reopening and they wanted to show classic films to get people back in the door or whatever. And my girlfriend had never seen Jaws before. And I was like, well, that's a big moment. I'm going to take you to go see Jaws and then we'll judge, your film taste based on this. And luckily she liked it, but I could have been a disaster.
Like the GFT show it now and again. And at some point over the last 2 years, I can't remember, in between lockdowns or whatever, I took my son to see it.
Wow.
And there's a lot of young kids there, and I loved it because the bit where the head comes through the bottom of the boat.
Every time.
You want to see them jump. I mean, it was brilliant. So, no, that's one of my favourites, yeah.
Every time that bit, and then when before he says we're going to the bigger boat and the shark first appears and the three guys here, that's also the moment that always made me jump when I was wee as well. I don't mind the sequels, but I had somebody on recently who loves the sequels, and I was like, finally someone that I can talk to about the sequels. They don't have a thing on the first one, obviously, but I think they're good fun, especially No, the fourth one, but 2 and 3.
Not a fan.
Not a fan. Anyway, when's the last time you went to the cinema? Have you seen any recent films at the pictures?
The last thing I saw at the cinema was the opening night of the film festival in Glasgow at the GFT. It was a film with Mark Rylance called The Outfit.
Oh, I didn't see it.
So it was. I quite enjoyed. I think it's split opinion, but I liked it. It was he was very, very good in it. It was set in although he was English in it. It was set in the States, and some of the actors were English, and the accents were kind of wandering all over the kind of North America. But that aside, it was. I thought it was an accomplished piece of work. It's very much like Reservoir Dogs in that it's set in one location.
Okay, good.
It's the kind of thing that will probably crop up in a few years as a play, because you could perform it as a play. But I enjoyed it. That was the last thing I saw.
I like films like that are set in the one location. That's part of the reason why I like Jaws so much, although it's not in the one location, but a lot of like the whole second act takes place on the boat, and that's what really kind of draws you in, I think. Yeah. He's in another film recently, Phantom of the Open. It just came out, and I missed it. My mates went to see it, but I never saw it. But I know he's in it.
Yeah, so I know I didn't fancy it. So.
Oh, really? Okay. I'll check that one out though. What was it called? The Outfitters?
The Outfit.
Outfit, right? Okay,
the
cool.
Outfit. Yeah.
Well, when we got in touch to do the episode today, I asked you to pick a film or pick your favourite film, one you know really, really well. Unfortunately, you didn't pick Jaws, but you picked The Godfather, a classic, an all-time classic. First question though, which one do you prefer? Do you prefer part 1 or part 2? Because I know a lot of people prefer the second one.
Yeah, very difficult. I think I like them both equally.
Okay.
But I think that it's worth noting it's probably the first film where the sequel is as good as, if not better than, the original. You know, and given the high standard that was set with the first one, I just think it's both films are incredible pieces of work. I loved the first one because it was I suppose the circumstances of when I saw it. When I was at school, in a Friday afternoon, you would have Friday afternoon activities, you know, where people would
of course
do poetry or play table tennis or go ice skating at Crossmyloof, whatever. But I joined the cinema club, and initially it wasn't great because you were sitting in a geography class and it was all projecting. You were watching things like Battleship Potemkin or something like that, and it was really it was grinding it out. But then the guy that ran it, the English teacher that ran it, struck a deal with the Salon Cinema off Byres Road. And because I went to Hill Head, which is just not that far away from it.
Right.
And we'd go there on a Friday afternoon, and we saw some wonderful films there, and one of them being The Godfather. So it had a huge impact on me. And when it came out, after seeing it, I read the book. And I'm actually reading it again just now.
Really?
50th anniversary. I haven't read it, so I'm nearly finished it. But I just thought it was the most amazing film, and the way it looks, the way it's shot, the style that it's got, and the story of this family and how the unlikeliest out the crop becomes
right.
The head is just it's wonderfully told. And I recently my wife gave me a book for my birthday called Leave the Gun. I leave the gun, take the cannoli.
Take the cannoli, yeah.
And, it's written by a guy called Mark Seal, and it charts the whole history from Puzo coming up with the idea to write the story and eventually writing it. So it took a hell of a long time,
right.
And equally, you know, the hassle they had in trying to put it all together and make the film. It's a great story.
Yeah. Well, so what age would you have been then when you went to see it? Like if you're still in school, because obviously it's an 18.
If I saw it about 73, I'd be about 15, 16
wow.
at the time. Yeah, yeah.
That's always a big thing, especially when you're that age, when it's like, I'm getting to see, as you said earlier, like I'm getting to see a film like this in the cinema. Do you know what I mean? Like, again, you couldn't get away with that now.
Yeah, you could. No, that's right. But no, it was great. But yeah, and it's the whole tension of the build up to Michael shooting Solozzo and the cop. That's the point. If it comes on the TV,
Right.
I'm putting myself right. I'll just watch it until Solozzo gets shot, and then I'll go and wash the dishes or something.
Yeah.
So you end up getting hooked. So but I think it's the most perfect example of the sort of gangster genre,
right?
And I think the only person that's matched that is the likes of Martin Scorsese.
Absolutely.
Which probably I've got a more realistic and natural and genuine feel to them. Maybe The Godfather slightly romanticized a little bit, whereas you absolutely totally believe in the likes of the characters in Goodfellas.
Yeah.
But that aside, I still think it's a great piece of work.
So what other gangster films do you rate as highly as The Godfather? Do you like Goodfellas? Do you like Casino?
I would say Goodfellas and Casino are up there with both Godfathers, yeah.
What did you make of The Irishman? Did you watch that one?
Well, I loved it, and I've watched it loads of times. It's on net. You can get it on Netflix, obviously, because they funded it.
Yeah.
But I've watched it loads of times, and when I saw it in the cinema, the thing that got me was it flew in for me. It didn't feel
3 hours or whatever.
Yeah. But I thought the performances in that were great. But I found out when I was, before I came out to speech, I was just checking a couple of things about both all the films that I've watched recently. You know how you talk about life imitating art imitating life? The part of Johnny Fontaine in The Godfather, right, was played by Al Martino, right, which was meant to be loosely based. Johnny Fontaine was meant to be loosely based on Frank Sinatra, and how he managed to get out as his godfather got him out of a contract and that kind of stuff. You remember it? Well, when they were casting the part of Johnny Fontaine, one of the producers, Albert Ruddy, offered it to Al Martino, not knowing that that Francis Ford Coppola had already offered it to a guy called Vic Damone, who was a singer in the 50s and 60s. And Al Martino's godfather was Russell Bufalino, who Joe Pesci plays in The Irishman.
Oh, really?
And Russell Bufalino fixed it so that Vic Damone said, "Do you know what, guys? I'm going to step back from this role. The money's not good enough," which was rubbish. There was a threat there. And Vic Damone pulled out, and Al Martino was able to get the job.
Wow.
But it was his godfather was Russell Bufalino, who Joe Pesci brilliantly plays in The Irishman. Yeah.
Art imitating life. There's this mad big scheme to try and arrange something else.
It shows, yeah.
Aye, that's crazy. Well, the first Godfather film is sitting at number 2 on the IMDb's top 250 greatest films of all time list.
Right.
Right behind The Shawshank Redemption is number 1.
They kind of go up and down, don't they?
Even the 2 Godfather films go up and down in terms of where they're placed. The Shawshank, Godfather 1, and then number 3, I believe, is The Dark Knight from 2008. Then Godfather 2, and then 12 Angry Men, I think, from memory.
Oh, really? That's a great film.
In fact, I'm going to check it now. That's going to
No, it's okay. You're okay.
But so obviously, as I'm saying, that kind of debate whether which one's better, and I think it's more a preference thing, isn't it? Like if number 2 is better than the first one. I've only seen the second one once, which was ages ago. I have seen the first one more times. But after watching it recently for the podcast today, I definitely want to go back and watch the second one, and I've never seen the third one. So
the third one's disappointing.
See, you shouldn't have told me that. Now I'm going to again
Well, no, it's no secret. I mean, it is disappointing because I remember Philip Differ, who I worked with and only an excuse. We're both mad Godfather fans, and when it came out, we went to see it together, and it was such a letdown. It just missed the mark. In fact, I was watching a funny thing. There was a reunion that was on YouTube Robert De Niro got them all together, all the likes of Pacino, James Caan, Robert Duvall, Diane Keaton, and they're all sitting around, and Godfather 3 is mentioned, and Robert Duvall's at the back and goes, "Not as good as 1 and 2, not as good as 1 and 2." But,
almost like he's making like a controversial statement or something.
Well, there was all the things about the likes of he pulled out of it because that's the reason Tom Hagen doesn't appear, is because it was to do with money. He found that he was getting a hell of a lot less than Al Pacino, and decided, you know what? So that's how the George Hamilton character came about in 3.
Right.
Similarly with 2, Clemenza's not in 2 because he was asking for complete control of his dialogue.
Oh.
And Coppola said no. He said, I can't.
You can't do that.
Can't allow that. And that's how Clemenza was killed off, and Frankie Pintanzli comes into it. I mean, you'll not, maybe not, if you only seen it once, you'll not remember. But you can look forward to all these things when you.
Yeah, I'll be like, oh yeah, that's that moment. Well, in 1973 at the Oscars, I wrote down the things that they were nominated for, or the main ones anyway. So obviously it won Best Picture in 1973, and the ones
Best
they were up
Actor.
against, it won Best Actor as well, Marlon Brando, and of course that whole controversy of him declining the award.
It was a Native American that came up.
Yeah, I watched it last night actually.
Yeah. He in the book Leave the Gun, Take the Cannoli, he comes across brilliantly. Because nobody only Coppola and Puzo wanted him. Nobody else would have him. It was either between, as far as Coppola was concerned, it was either between Brando or Laurence Olivier.
Yeah, okay.
And but eventually he would only be considered for the role if he did a screen test, which, you know, he was a huge star. And
right.
Coppola knew that he wouldn't go along with that. So he said, look, can I try some sound stuff out here? Can we just shoot a couple of scenes and just see how it works out? So that's how it was done. And then when Coppola slipped it into the tape that he filmed into the audition pieces. So when the producer looked at it and said, "Who's that?" But that's Brando. That was fantastic, and that's how you got the part.
Yeah.
Yeah, great stuff.
So he won Best Actor, and he's up against Michael Caine, Laurence Olivier, Peter O'Toole, and Paul Winfield, all big names at that time.
Yeah.
And then Best Director was won by Bob Fosse, who directed Cabaret, and Francis Ford Coppola was nominated, but didn't win the Oscar for that, which I thought was shocking. So I've never seen Cabaret, so maybe I need to go watch that one.
Cabaret's pretty good. The guy, because there was about Pacino. I think Pacino, Caan, and Robert Duvall were up for Best Supporting Actor.
Right.
But it was won by Joel Grey, who played the MC in Cabaret.
Right.
So, yeah.
So that was a big film at the time too. What do you make of the soundtrack? I feel like it's just the score itself, I guess, because I feel like that's just as big a part as anything of making that film feel the way it does, and it just completely draws you in as like it's so recognizable as, okay, this is the essence of this film. You know what I mean? Yeah,
it's a wonderful piece of music. The book that I mentioned to you that covers all that, and how much significance Coppola made in getting that right. He looked at a couple of people, but settled in it's Nino. Can't remember who did but he also got his father to do incidental music as well.
Right.
And I think his father actually had more of a contribution to make in the second one, Carmine Coppola. So yeah, no, it's a wonderful piece of music, and all the incidental stuff as well, and it's tremendous.
I mean, as you say about like the way it looks and the way it's shot and things like that. I mean, the music's just as big of a part of that to kind of make it have that whole style of that kind of gangster film.
The way it's shot, it's this sort of sepia toned, sort of shade. It's just it's fantastic. It gives it a lovely quality. I think they were worried initially when they saw the early stuff that it was going to be too dark. But when you see it all put together, it's a work of art.
Yeah. What I like about it is it's the showing of the passing of time between like all the years that the film shot over, and you see Michael becoming the Godfather himself and that whole character development thing. When you get something like that where it's literally taken over a couple of years or more than a couple of years, it can either be done really well or it can be done badly. And I think this is one of the best examples of how it's like he's totally started this really vulnerable character, likable character. Yeah. And then by the end, you're going to have these other couple of films where I'm assuming, he's going to be a bad guy, and not a bad guy, but like a big kind of someone to be intimidated by.
It's I think that it's over the first one's over a 10-year period, and the way it's done and charted is it's expertly done. Yeah.
My favourite scene is the baptism scene. Just when it's happening and you see all the different death, like the 5 killings, as the music's being played. The 5 families. I don't know why. It just always makes me feel quite intimidating. Is that the word? Like
my favorite is the killing of Solozzo.
Yeah,
because that was the one that when I saw it as a kid in the salon, the tension build up and the sound of the railway in the background and the train all building up and building up and building up, and then the bang at the end. That was, I remember first time I saw that, blown away by it.
Aye. It's definitely one of those ones where you can watch over and over again, and maybe it's because it's so long. Do you know what I mean? It's almost in 3 acts a wee bit, where it's just like you can watch, as you say, watch it for a bit and then go do something else and come back to it and stuff like that. There's not many films that really have that kind of grasp to it where you can do it any time. Would you say this is the film you probably watched the most in your life, or you would happily watch more?
I've watched it a lot. There's a number of films that I've watched. I tend to watch an awful lot. All the President's Men.
Oh yeah.
Watched that loads and loads of times. Where Eagles Dare. No, I don't watch that loads of times, but if it's on, I'll watch it. There's a few that I'll watch quite a bit, but that's certainly one of them. Yeah.
What about your kids? Like, have they seen The Godfather before? Have you been able to sit down and watch it with them?
Well, we've only got a son who's 22 now, but a number of years ago, my wife was away for the weekend, and I set it up so we would have a Godfather weekend.
Nice.
So Friday night was Godfather 1, and the Saturday night was Godfather Part 2. And with Italian food both nights, and did the whole thing, and he loved it. But I always remember he was on his phone because he was checking out in Wikipedia and stuff like that, key moments. Didn't want to disturb, but yeah. So he's seen both of these. Yeah, he's a very keen cinema goer himself, and watches a lot of good films. Yeah.
So you watched the first one on the Friday night, the second one on the Saturday night. You watched something else on the Sunday.
Well, no, I wouldn't have included the third one because I didn't want to, spoil the whole experience. But no, that's how we worked it. Yeah,
that sounds good. Just as we finish up here, what does this film kind of mean to you? What when you talk about it, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? What are you going to think about this film going forward?
Well, what's the first thing? I think it's probably one of my the sort of early experience of a sort of going to see this grown up film and becoming really interested in it, interested enough to read the book as well. Mm-hmm. So it's it's a passage of rights, if you like. It was the memories of going to the salon cinema. It didn't just stop there, I went there for a number of years when we eventually moved down to Partick, and I would still go up there. And then, of course, I worked there as well with the BBC when we used to do Naked Radio. So going to the salon is a big part of my life, as is the GFT. Yeah, more so with the GFT, actually. But it brings back so many good memories. Yeah.
Brilliant. What have you got coming up then? Have you got any work coming up that you can tell us about?
I suppose the next big thing, a couple of things to do, but the next big thing that you probably know about is I start filming a program called Two Doors Down.
Of course.
So we start the 6th series of that. I think the 5th series should be shown. I think it might be sometime this month. They never tell us. It's coming out fairly soon, I think. So because they showed a couple of episodes in a Christmas special just before Christmas, because we only had 2 episodes that were available, and we reshot stuff in January. Well, we didn't reshoot. We did pickups that we had to do because we couldn't complete it because of the second lockdown and COVID.
Right.
So that's the next big thing that I start doing that.
Cool.
In July.
Nice. Love Two Doors Down. I'm a big wrestling fan, so obviously I know Grado.
Oh yeah, Grado.
How is it having Grado on set all the time? I just assume he probably drives you nuts.
No, not at all. I'm very
probably asking you to do impressions of old Rangers players and that.
He does. Well, you know, has he told you that story?
No, I don't know. I don't know him personally. I just.
What this is a typical. If I'm sat beside him on the couch in Beth's living room, we'll have a 10-page scene coming up, and in which me and Elaine usually have most of the dialogue. So you've really got to be on it with the lines, and so they're doing all the final checks, and everything will be ready to go. The camera will be turned over. We're just about to shoot action, and he'll nudge me and he'll go, "Going to do Graham Souness." And you'll be, shut up. I'm trying to concentrate. No, he's great. He's absolutely brilliant. He's a very accomplished actor.
Yep.
I love working with him, and he's great. We have a right good laugh.
Good.
And of course, he's a Rangers fan as well.
I know he's a Rangers fan. Of course, that's always something to talk about.
There's only the 2 of us kicking about in set.
Oh, really?
The rest all Celtic fans. So there you go.
That's why I asked about him and no one else. Right. Thanks very much for your time, Jonathan. I really appreciate it. And
my pleasure.
Thank you to everybody listening and watching. Hope you enjoyed. We'll see you all next time on the Good Bit Podcast. Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you all down the road.
Citizens